This video is going to show you a Solar Master Nightfall getting Platinum rank on a Titan on the Fallen Saber strike. For those who just want to see that, then skip the timestamps. Other than that, I can show you the modifiers and the setup. So the modifiers for the Master Nightfall are Hot Knives, so Shanks have Solar Shields, Champions are Barrier and Overload, Togetherness is the weekly modifier, Equipment Locked, Match Game, Champions Mob, Shielded Foes are Arc and Void, but also Solar because of Hot Knife. Polearm, you deal more damage with melee weapon attacks, but take more damage for foes that are far away. We're not really playing into that. And Acute Arc Burn, so plus 50% for the damage received, and plus 25% Arc Burn for you. So you need to include that in your loadout. So for the Titan, we're using Sentinel. That's Tower and Barricade, the Shield Throw, the ranged one, Vortex Grenade. Aspects are Bastion, Controlled Demolition. Fragments are Echo of Undermining, Expulsion, and Remnants. We paired that with the exotic chestplate Heart of Inmost Light, which I can talk more about. All the stuff that I'm telling you in the run, it'll be more in the run, but this is just a tick list to show you what I've got on. In terms of weapons, we're using a auto rifle, Krait, with Overload, which has Vorpal weapon on it. It's actually a really good auto. And then for our exotic choice, we're using Ticuu's Divination, which is a solar exotic bow for barriers. So this is what we're using for barriers. And then we're using Sleepless, a arc rocket launcher. If you want to use Hothead, you can. I'm just switching it up. I used it on my last run. On the wall run I used Hothead, but this time I'm going to use Sleepless. As for our armor mods, they are going to be... Well, I'm using Wrath of Rasputin, believe it or not, which generates Warmind cells from Soul Splash damage. Kind of comes out a little bit handy, but I'm not doing a Warmind cell build. Just bear that in mind. It's just, I had a free mod slot. I'm using Ticuu's, so I just put on Wrath of Rasputin. It ended up being helpfully-ish, I guess. We're using Avoid Elemental Well, so we've got Well of Tenacity, Reaping Wellmaker, Font of Wisdom, and Loosen Finisher. So Loosen Finisher, you can generate heavy ammo when you get finishes on champs. Reaping Wellmaker will generate Void Wells after each barricade that you do. Well of Tenacity will give you resistance. We've got Rocket Launcher Scavenger on the boots, double solar damage resistance and arc, double seasonal mod chestplates, they stack. Obviously Overload Barrier on the gauntlets, Rocket Launcher Ammo Finder, Ashes to Assets, because we're using a lot of grenades, so for increased super. That's the setup that I'm using for the Titan. So as we start the run, we'll summon our Sparrow, and Sparrow to the left, just a little quicker getting to the starting section. So when the Warsat is summoned, it's not summoned until you get to the grottos, right? When that is summoned, you need to make sure you don't get any damage taken off your HP, because obviously Togetherness is on, so you can't get health regen the usual way. You have to rely on other things, right? I.e. certain weapons, unrelenting, perks, etc. So just do yourself a favour and just do what I'm doing now. I know there's people say, oh, you don't need to do this. I know you don't have to do it, but on Grandmaster you do have to do it. So I may as well just teach you the GM strat. So make sure you're behind the rock I just was. Wait for the Warsat to summon. Once that's happened, you can then proceed. Do it in that order and get used to doing it. Don't be don't be the guy that goes there and gets spawn killed by the Warsat. So what I'm doing here is aggroing the ship so the turret's spawning. Then I'll use a rocket because it one-shots him. I can forget about it then. Then what I'm going to do here is get a couple of sticks with Ticuu's, with the hip fire, and using my nade and my barricade and my melee ability. This will then give me an increased ability regen for my abilities. And the idea with this is combining Controlled Demolition with Ticuu's explosive attack. Because obviously how Ticuu's works, when you stick an enemy, if you hit them with anything else, not just the bow, it still explodes. So that can synergize with Controlled Demolition. And not only that, when you're clearing those adds that have the void detonators attached to them, you will get HP. Now that's critical for this because Togetherness is on, right? Obviously on Grandmaster I won't be doing this tactic where you stay on the plate. Notice when I stepped off the plate, 30%, 32%, right? Because at 34% is when the first overload spawns. Now it's going to be a bit too much for you if that happens. So what I'm doing is I've took it to 30%, killed all the adds to that phase. Then we're ready for overload. You want to have a barricade for this and a grenade ready. Look up top to see where the overload is spawning, because it's RNG. You might be left, right of the ship, just depends. But you need to make sure you get a grenade on there and then rocket. That will one-shot the champ. If you're low in power, then I advise you take this in phases. Step on the plate, step off the plate, step on the plate, and take each phase like that. If you're close to power, if you're 1570s or whatever, you can do this, like this. We'll double rocket the ship just so it deals with it quickly. We're going to step off the plate now though, because we're at 49%. Don't go above 50%, 52, because that's when you get the barrier to spawn in. You don't want the barrier to spawn in just yet. There'll be snipers on this phase that go to this rock. You want to take those out, and then captain, use your rocket. Spam rockets on this. As long as you've got rocket finder on, you're going to get plenty of heavy, and you double prime. I'm double primary for that reason. Okay. Then we'll just get some sticks from back here. Then I'll decide to step on the plate. The barrier is going to spawn in, so we need to step off. And there's different ways of dealing with this barrier. Probably best up top, where I'm going to go to in a sec. I'm just trying to get any of these adds I can, because obviously the barrier is going to tether all these enemies, so it's going to make it harder for me. Make sure you've at least got 2 rockets for this barrier. So I'll lead with a grenade, and we'll get a stun, which Ticuu takes 2 shots. 2 shots to... it just depends with Ticuu. If you get the timing correctly, which I'll talk more about this probably later on in the run, but Ticuu is a great weapon, but it's not a good barrier weapon. It outright just isn't that good of a barrier weapon. It's okay, alright, but Le Monarch's a better barrier weapon. Thing is with Ticuu, it's good. It's amazing for adds. It's got the tracking. It synergizes, as I said, with control demolition on the Titan. So it's really good that way. Now notice the next percentage I stepped off the plate was 63%, so don't go above 63. Because then you'll get a ship spawn behind you, and the ship will melt you while you're dealing with these snipers. So take this bit, pause, take out the remainder of the adds, right? And then you can deal with the next phase, because the next phase you've got to be on point. I've saved a super for it, which I recommend you do that as well. Save a super for this final phase. This is a chance to fill up on ammo as well. I'm 6 rockets, I'm good, but you can see how much ammo I'm getting. That's because of rocket finder and the fact I'm double primary heavy. I'm getting more heavy that way. So now, 2 things you need is a grenade and a barricade. That's so important to you if you want to melt down this overload. So I'm just waiting on my grenade energy. You can see where it is. Then we'll step back on plate. We'll have 1 ship to deal with, which again, I'm going to use a rocket to take down these turrets. If you're going to do it this way, then you need to sort of deal with that turret as soon as possible, and Ticuu might be too slow for it probably. Because you need to be spawn killing adds as they drop. So a barricade first, look out for where your overload is. He's right in front of me. Do a grenade, jump over the barricade, and then the rocket does the rest of the work. Take out the servitor as well if you want. If you do take down his shield. Then we're stalling a little bit. Do a little bit of our abilities just to get our health regen just in case. And then when we get to like 90%, we'll pop a super. If you pop a super at about 90%, that's enough to capture the plate. All adds will despawn. You don't need to clear any of the adds because you've already killed the overload. If you don't get a stun on the overload, you're going to have to take this slower. You're going to have to do step on the plate, step off the plate, take adds from the back of the map, like on the Grandmaster strat, which I'll cover when it comes out. But you've got to be on the ball if you're going to stun him with the grenade like that and rocket them. So now we'll open the bunker and then go inside. This is the first initial room, which honestly... I'm not a huge fan of this strike overall. I mean, I like it, but with Togetherness, it just makes it unnecessary. The room's so tight and small, and there's a lot of snipers. But what you want to do first of all is come to this area, start with a grenade, and clear out as many adds as you can. The exploder shanks are going to push you first, which is 4 of them. Also, there'll be adds that spawn behind to our right. We need to pay attention to that. Every time we get an ad spawn behind us, we want to try and do some spawn killing on these ads. Some of the invis fallen will push. That can happen, but it's based on waves. It's based on how many ads you clear on the outside. For each percentage, you get an extra set of ads, basically. We'll do a grenade here, spawn kill a lot of the ads with Ticus, which is putting out a good amount of damage. We're over halfway to our super. We need a super for this bit. Even if it's just one sniper, you really need to have a super going, because you have snipers. There's like 2 or 3, and they get made immune by the barrier. So this is a bit of a conundrum, this, because you've got a barrier shield and the overload. You can't take the overload. It's the barrier that you need to take. You start doing some damage on the barrier, and you're getting sniped, and you're getting shot by the overload. So it's kind of a nightmare. So what you want to do is super any remaining snipers, because you're gonna, just because of togetherness, you're gonna find it difficult to deal with anything on here. So what I can do is, if you're not quite there with your super, is you can actually generate super energy off these targets. So try and shoot the barrier and stuff, just to get super energy. You can just pay close attention to my super when I start doing that. When I start getting some direct hits on. So you see, look at my super, it's going up. I'm getting some shots off with Ticus, I'm getting more super. Even though it's only like 2 or 3 snipers, it's so important just to deal with them. Because you can't tank all that damage. Because ideally what you do is you use your Roman super to then take out, because your super will penetrate the barrier's tether. That's the whole idea of it. So we have super now. So we'll take out the 3 snipers. And then when you've done that, there's nothing else you can do. You're probably not going to kill that barrier. You can, but you know, by that time just go back to this corridor. Now you want to sort of do some damage to the barrier. So I think the best place to stand here now is at the back of the map. I'm not standing in the right location here, because the barrier isn't wanting to push, but the overload is, and the overload's tethered. So sometimes if you stand here, the barrier will come to where you stand, but obviously when you start primarying that barrier, it's just going to keep teleporting. So if you come back here, you can get a bit of damage in. I've got the champ a little bit weak, which is exactly what you want. I'll do a barricade behind this pillar, this is the perfect place to fight from now. Okay, then we'll get our shield break. Just getting 1 shield break's enough, and then we'll double rocket the champ. Double rocket the champ, and then we're dealt with. But once that barrier is taken out, you need to retreat. Don't start dealing with the overload, like you will die to all the snipers. I think it's 3 or 4 traces shanks that spawn in. So there's no exploders, not on this phase. It is on the next. But before you deal with the overloads, you need to deal with the solar shanks. Right. So anytime you're weak, pop your barricade, your abilities, spam your nades if you must. Because that's the thing with Heart of Inmost Light. The more you spam your abilities, the better it is. You can see on the left hand side, it's telling me how much, what abilities are what for regeneration. The higher resilience as well on a Titan, the better. So I'm going to start farming resilience sets, because I deleted all my resilience sets way back when. I had a lot of resilience sets, but then I just was happy enough with like tier 5 resilience on the Titan. As tier 5 resilience is enough to sort of tank. Tier 5, tier 6 is the highest I ever really need to be when I'm doing Grandmasters. But now, because of our Heart of Inmost Light works with Bastion, you want to have Bastion up as much as possible with the barricades. So that's where resilience is the best stat. Ideally, you want good recovery, good grenade energy, and good resilience. Those are the 3 stats now most important on a Sentinel Titan. Intellect, don't spec for it. I don't know why there's people still even specking for intellect, unless you're playing PvP. So now we've got the fuse section. So what I'm going to do here is spawn kill all the ads that spawn. If you do this little thing here. So a grenade, melee, clears them all out. It saves us time. Saves us trouble. The shanks will push, so that's your next thing. Try not to be too close when you do that. If a shank does explode close to you, you better hope that your solar resistance helps you survive that, which is why we've got double solar resistance on. Not just one, double. If you just got one on, you probably will die, and if you're below 1580, you definitely will die to one. Because coming up after this, it's very important that you have the best resistance, because you will die to it. Simple as that. So now I'm going to do with the 2 overloads. This is a good place on this section. I'll do a barricade first for the overshield. We'll do a grenade, and then rocket, and then auto rifle. This auto rifle is really good at stunning champs. I was using the duty bound auto. I have triple tap Vorpal with stun and recovery on it. Sounds amazing, right? It's terrible. I can't believe that stun and recovery needs a buff. It's not doing what I thought it maybe would do, or maybe not as good as what it sounds. It partially refunds ammo and gives you a little bit of health regen. Like if that fully regains your ammo, like a full mag, then you're looking at something. Now we're looking at maybe running this, but it's just not what I thought it would be. I was disappointed because I was dead excited when I got that auto, but duty bound is the auto that you can actually farm this week. So now with the orb section, you take down the 2 snipers first. If they snipe you even once, you need to wait for health regen, because base health regen is hindered, but your overshield from Bastion isn't. It works as it would, but your HP underneath the blue overshield doesn't. So it might look like you've got full HP, but you haven't. So what I'm going to do is do a barricade halfway down this runway. Be careful not to hit any lighting. Then you want to time, as soon as the electric shock goes past you, then you Titan skate. All it is you're repeatedly pressing your jump and hitting your head on the wall, and then you come to this location here. Now that was actually a bad run by me because the shank exploded on me. I hit the shank, and my intention was to go around the shank, and it didn't happen. On Grandmaster I would have been dead there, but that's the idea of the strat. You would skate past the shank in that little corner. As soon as you dunk the orb, all the shanks de-aggro. That's just what they do. Now we'll start with a grenade, get our health back. So obviously we get our health back from killing any enemies that have the detonators. We're using a super here just for ad clear. It's as simple as that. Just using it here because we're not going to be using it for quite a bit yet. And the way it works for this is like room 2. Room 3 you need to lead with a super. You need to go to that room with a super. So if we use a super late room 2 in this room, we're not going to have a super for room 3 when we want. So I stunned the champion from back here and double rocketed that overload as soon as I could before the barrier comes out, because if you don't do that, you're going to have more overloads to deal with while the barrier tethers the ads, which can be a pain. Then you want to play from this doorway. Now, every time you kill a champion, you get an extra set of wretches and shanks and stuff and exploders. So just remember, every time you clear a champ, you need to back up and then go again. Now this champion is actually pushing us, and that's ideal. So that's enough. With Vorpal, people are calling Vorpal, but Vorpal's amazing because it's instant. See, Frenzy isn't instant. Frenzy takes the time. And here's the thing with it: if you just quickly swap to your linear or your rocket, and Frenzy's not procced, you're losing damage. And I know Vorpal's only 10% on heavies, but it's 10% more than nothing. So Vorpal is still a top tier perk, and don't be sleeping on it. So now all we're doing is just trying to take out the ads and allow them to push us, which they eventually will, because we're not in a position to take the barrier or the overload, because the overload is tethered. It seems to me also that the barrier will only tether a certain amount of enemies. It's capped. It seems to be, because sometimes the overload will stand right next to the barrier, and if there's a bunch of ads, the barrier will tether all the ads but not the overload. But then when there's just an overload and barrier, obviously the overload will get tethered. So it's interesting how things like that work. This overload is pushing me to the left, so I was thinking about maybe trying to take the overload, but I knew that the rocket wouldn't hit the champ, because what would happen is it would hit the banisters. It's so annoying that the Overlord stuns and he sort of crouches so you can't get a shot off. So I cut my losses and stopped engaging with that. And it would end up me losing ammo. Well, I've got my grenade back anyways, so it's fine to be spamming, you know, grenades. And if we miss, we miss. So we're going to push up a little bit. These stairs are really good, okay, because the barrier and stuff can't hit us. The Overlord's not tethered, so we'll do our usual grenade, rocket, and our rifle. Sometimes, obviously, you can go in for the finishers. Sometimes you can't, because I've got to lose some finisher on. My rocket ammo's healthy, so I don't need to be risking going for finisher kills. All right. So now we're just looking around. There's no ads. Well, there is one Invis Marauder, but our next protocol probably is the barrier, because that's all the Overlords dealt with actually. Which I was surprised with. And the reason why this bit was a little bit easier is because I killed that initial Overlord at the very start. That helped out. This barrier has teleported, and I don't know why my bow shots aren't hitting, but they're not. In my opinion, that's a bow hit on that champ, but he's behind that pillar. So we go again with it. That's fine. We'll barricade up though, because we're going to be doing some sustained damage, and whenever you are, you need to make sure you get your overshield going, and it's there to be used. The key with Ticus is to not hit fire. When you go for the barrier, you just do your normal shots. Just your normal aim down sight shots. Don't hit fire. The hit fire is terrible for barrier. It doesn't seem to work. But when you aim down sights, it will. If you've got the time and exact, which obviously if I was to use this more in like GMs and Masters, I'll get more used to how Ticus works with barrier. But it is a bit iffy, but it's really good for ad clear. Obviously, it's really good for the even cells. I mean, I've got Wrath of Rasputin on. It worked out good for that. So this room, this is what I was on about before, room 3. You want to have a super here because you need to take out all the snipers that are surrounding the server. Once you've dealt with that, you want to retreat. I was a bit too aggressive there, but I got the health regen from the shield throw. That was fine. Then what you want to do is deal with the barrier. If you kill all the Overlords, or 2 of them, the barrier will actually go left and then shield the Overlord, the remaining one. So don't do that. In other words, just take the barrier, back up, take the barrier. Then you can deal with the Overlords. I know there's 3, and it's quite overwhelming, but what you want to do is fight from here. I'm going to use a barricade for my overshield. Use my melee just to get my nade. There's a sniper still up, which that's very important. You don't leave snipers up. And then we're just going to stun with the grenade. Obviously, I could have with the auto, but here's the thing with the auto. When you do sustained damage on an Overlord, they're more likely to teleport. If they're just standing there, you notice they're just standing there, the nade's sometimes the better option, and you're going to get that debuff because you're weakening them. We'll double rocket that champ there. Now it's just 1 Overlord left. Obviously, if you're under power, you need to do this a little bit differently, and you might even want to go a different setup. This is more for when you're closer to power level, the setup that I'm using, because both weapons aren't terribly good. I mean, this assault rifle's actually good. I'm surprised. I'm showing you here now the Krait. It's not bad at stunning, and it's because it's a fast fire auto. So in other words, the fast fire autos are better than the slower rate of fires. Anything below 600 RPM, they're just not as good at stunning, but they have higher range. So if you're dealing with Overlords from a distance, that's fine. But they're just not as good overall. And the bow that I'm using isn't as good for the barriers. But as long as you do what I'm saying, where you just aim down sights, then you shouldn't have... The barriers aren't the biggest, problem. We'll take down the Cerberus shield with our void ability, and then we'll just keep using Ticus. And then there'll be a void shield on the other side. What I'm going to do though is I'm going to save my nade. Save a grenade for when the boss fight starts, then you've got a weakening ability on that boss. So you can do a good bit of damage. Because we're close to our super, so I'm stalling time a little bit. So I just get my super here. My rocket's loaded. So what I'm going to do for the first phase of damage is lead with a grenade, rocket, and then use my super. So grenade, rocket, super, and then we're just going to do the melee bash combo. You see the massive damage it's doing, get him down to a phase, and then I will just retreat at that point. Your safe haven, if you like, if you want to call it that, is this side of the map, and especially right side. There's a very nice place to stand where the boss can't even see you, because the boss can see us, right, and the boss can snipe you. So it's just something you've got to be aware of. But right now, we'll just take out all the solar shanks that you can. When you get down to 2 or 3 shanks, they may be tethered. So this is our safe zone, if you like. What my goal here is not to clear this barrier yet, is just to get a shield break. Get a shield break and then deal with the solar shanks. And then you can actually deal with the barrier. Just use Ticus to do some chip damage. This is what I mean about the Ticus. If your timing's a split second off, the barrier just regens. So you've really got to wait for it. We'll just rocket that champ. We'll do a barricade here. Debuff. So we saved a nade. We do this every time for damage. Save a bit of a grenade. My rocket just missed. That was unfortunate. But I'm just going to keep rocketing this boss. Because in all honesty, you don't need a lot of rockets for the later phase of the fight. I mean, maybe 2 or 3 minimum, but you don't need all that most, because you can really slow it all down after this phase. So this phase is very critical that you take out the 2 exploder shanks that spawn left and right. Very shortly after, you'll get 2 snipers that spawn right side top. Take them as quickly as possible before the barrier shields them, because then you're going to be dealing with a shielded sniper. That's not what you want. If you do what I've just done, the 2 exploders, the 2 snipers, then you're good. At this point you can chill again and start taking for the barrier. We'll put down our shield because we're doing sustained damage, so we can tank it. You can see the shield, the overshield regenerating, right? So that's not affected by Togetherness, which I'm glad for at the very least. But obviously, below that blue overshield, your HP bar is independent from the overshield. So you just got to know that. This has always been the case. Just it's more drastic when Togetherness is on. You could, your overshield could be burst, and then all of a sudden your HP bar below that is like 10%, and then you die, and you're like, what? So you've really got to know that where your HP bar is. So I have no heavy. We're going to use Lewis and Finisher here because it's totally worth doing, so that we get the 2-3 rockets I was on about. There's actually a brick back here which I didn't even know about. Watch the pillars. They were doing a lot of arc damage to me. The barrier was so teleported over the far side. It was kind of annoying that. We'll get a debuff going. I'm kind of weak, so I'm going to back up. That's a double. That's the arc resist helping. We have our barricade, and this is your next safe zone when the pillars go up. So at this point, you just want to deal with a lot of the solar shanks. You're not ready for pure damage yet. When that boss gets down to a third, obviously the faceplate comes off and the boss enrages. That's where you want your 2-3 rockets. Now I've got 5, so I've got plenty. But 2-3 rockets is required, a super, and you're good at that. You'll then burn the boss down. But here's the thing, you want to look for your moment of opportunity, because you keep getting it. Each time these shanks are killed. Now you can see they're giving me 0 points. Someone's pointed this out to me that it's a bug. It's not. It's not a bug. They don't give you points because they're infinite. Well, they are not infinite, but they are for the most part. So we do our debuff, we got our rockets, then we use our super. That will then finish off the boss. And then that will be your Solar Master Platinum done on a Titan. Hope you enjoy. Thank you.